Hi everyone, I'm Tom, and it's time for a top 10 again. Normally, I'm talking about board games and stuff, but for a bit of a change, and this was voted for by viewers, by patrons. If you would like to have a vote in it, patreon.com/slickerdrips. Early plug there. But thanks to patrons, we're going to be talking about music today. Out of my depth. Yeah, we're going to be talking about my top 10 favourite albums. And yeah, that's not the same as my top 10 favourite artists, although it's kind of ended up that way. But yeah, I'm going to ramble on about music. So hopefully you're along for the journey with me. Yeah, it's taken me, I kind of agonise too much over these top 10 lists anyway, and should probably just put them out of my, when you first make the list, just make the video and have done with it. They're probably, if they're not, don't end up your 10 absolute favourites, they're probably 10 pretty good things. But yeah, I agonise over things and probably agonise over this a lot more. And yeah, don't really talk about music in this way, so let's just see how we get on, shall we? I don't feel like, one thing I've learned from making the list is that, yeah, looking at the list of artists just in general and the albums, I don't feel like you're going to get an introduction to this life-changing thing that you've never heard of. There's a couple of maybe more unusual things in there, one definitely, but yeah, it's probably going to end up like looking like a generic list, but I'll have talked about it, so that'll be alright, won't it? So number 10 is Nevermind by Unsung Heroes Nirvana. I always thought this would be unplugged. I always thought that was my favourite, but really digging in and listening to a lot of these over and over again and the different options again to make sure it's Nevermind. So like pretty much I think every album on this list, every track is just one that I would listen to again and again. I would listen to the album in its entirety, no problem. Nirvana kind of fill that kind of limit towards that. I've never really been into kind of metal music or anything kind of screamy, but Nirvana is that kind of limit for me, I think. Especially the first album, The Sound of Bleach. That is the album isn't called The Sound of Bleach. The sound of the album that is called Bleach is that kind of much screamier, heavier sound. But yeah, that Kurt Cobain's voice is about that limit for me. I love that kind of, that growl, that quality that his voice has. He's got such an amazing knack for writing melodies from the kind of Beatles style of About a Girl. To all of these melodies are just catchy, and that is why anthems like Smells Like Teen Spirit or songs like In Bloom and Lithium and Come As You Are. Look at the back of the album, I'll tell you what's on it. Come As You Are is the other one. These are just they've got great riffs, they've got incredibly distinctive drum beats from Dave Grohl, and yeah, it all comes together so beautifully. And I think what kind of elevates Nevermind above all of the others is that they've all got these kind of distinctive sounds to them. That Bleach has got that much more raw, much heavier, much more distorted and screamy beginning quality, and then In Utero, the album after this, is much more stripped down and kind of more back to basics, but not as kind of aggressive as Bleach was, and that's the Pixies producer did In Utero. Nevermind is this kind of polished Nirvana, where the producer Butch Vig out of Garbage, and he was very keen on making them do extra takes, double tracking vocals, trying to get this kind of perfect sound out of it. And I know that Nirvana themselves preferred, that's why they went in the direction of In Utero, preferred that more raw sound. Kurt Cobain didn't want to be singing over all of these vocals, I think, until he was told that John Lennon did it. But yeah, for my tastes, I really, really like that kind of polished sound to it, and it's still, it's still strange, and it's still all over the place, and like the kind of middle eight of Drain You is just this kind of steady kind of pounding beat, and then it's all kind of kids' toys and squeaky ducks and stuff in the background and kind of steam noises. You've got the massive gap and the kind of hidden, that's where the real noise is in Endless Nameless. You've got the kind of really stripped down feel of Something in the Way. I just love everything on this, and it's kind of everything sounds distinctly Nirvana and kind of just polished to as as commercial and stuff as they would be, and I know that could be a negative part of it, and I wouldn't necessarily say that being commercial is something that I really liked about it, but I just kind of like its presentation, its kind of cleanliness of this very messy, rough thing that is kind of being kind of squeezed into the diamond that is Nevermind, and yeah, that's why it's really iconic, really, isn't it? Nevermind, Nirvana. Number 9 is Hunky Dory by David Bowie. And similarly, I'll probably say this for loads of the entries, I always thought that this was going to be either Station to Station or maybe Ziggy Stardust. But yeah, when it comes down to it, Hunky Dory is just a bit more perfect than they are. So it's kind of, David Bowie early on is this kind of, not quite novelty, but, this strange character, this kind of more hippie, more, not necessarily experimental, but strange, certainly. And by Ziggy Stardust, it's full on glam. And this is kind of catches him in between those things. So it's got hits like Changes and Life on Mars, more iconic songs of his. And they really fit in with the feel of this album, that it is somewhere in the middle, that it is this kind of, it's more piano based, not that there isn't tons of piano all throughout those other albums. And it's Rick Wakeman out of Yes playing the piano on it, who does some amazing fills in them. Oh You Pretty Things is one that is particularly led by the piano, and I think that Bowie has a great way of kind of strangely constructing songs. They go in directions that you don't really expect, and even things that I think, as I was kind of discovering David Bowie way back when, things that I probably wouldn't have liked if I hadn't kind of been brought down the path with all the rest of the stuff. But yeah, some of my favourite David Bowie songs are on this. I love, I've mentioned Changes, of course, but 8-Line Poem is beautiful. Cooks is absolutely fantastic, written for the baby that David Bowie and his wife had, and just basically being like, growing up with us is going to be strange, hope you're okay with that kind of thing. I really like the message of that song as well. Quicksand is great. Feel Your Heart is a beautiful love song. It reminds me of the kind of positivity of something like Soul Love from Ziggy Stardust as well. And Queen Bitch is a very kind of Velvet Underground inspired song. But yeah, that is one of my absolute favourite David Bowie songs. Oh, and Andy Warhol as well. I think that is such a strange song. But yeah, that really endears it to me even more. I think it's funny as well. A lot of these things you can tell that the people making them were just having fun throughout it, and it's not about just filling them with jokes or even having a particularly light-hearted feel. It's just that you can see the kind of burst and creativity and good feeling that surrounded these things. Although there's enough things that were created in bad atmospheres that ended up being fantastic as well. But yeah, I think Hunky Dory just tops it for me with I think it's got the best flow of songs throughout the whole album, and yeah, most of my favourites would be on this, or more of my favourites than Ziggy or Station to Station. But it's not fair because Station to Station hasn't got as many songs. Number 8, Rush, Hemispheres, and How to Keep Gatefold Covers Closed When They're Stood Up Like This. So yeah, I'm kind of late to prog in general, although Rush is different from a lot of prog. So I'd kind of grown up with more into punk and knowing the story of all of that, and that prog was this horrible, meandering, boring thing that needed to be torn down, and thank goodness punk came along and put a stop to all of that. And it's only much later on, it's only in the last kind of 10 years, maybe less than that I had even heard of Rush, let alone started getting into them so much. So they are kind of, they still have the kind of fantasy themes, the long, complex songs, the strange time signatures and stuff that you would associate with, or that I would associate with prog just in general anyway, with progressive rock. But they have this kind of, they have this hard rock edge to them, and then it's there's only 3 of them, and for 3 people they put out more noise than practically anyone out there, and so I could list so many Rush albums, and kind of a golden period from something like 2112 up to Grace Under Pressure, which is a pretty significant chunk of their career, that I would say just I could listen through all of the songs of those albums. Not to say that the others aren't fantastic as well, but particularly with Hemispheres. And a lot of that has to do with the song Hemispheres. There is a huge song that's half the side of the album, and it tells this story of this guy that's this world that is kind of split. The people are turning to these Greek gods, and how do we build things, and the god of knowledge tells them how to build all this stuff, and they're not satisfied, so they go to the god of love, who tells them that they don't need any of that stuff. They just do what your heart tells you and go and live in the woods and stuff. And then they slowly over the course of the song realize that, oh, that's no good either, and you need a balance of stuff. I don't feel like I'm really doing it justice to all that, but it's a really cool story that comes out through it. But this is Cygnus X1 Book 2 Hemispheres, because the end of the previous album had a song where people went to fly off into a black hole and got torn apart. And then halfway through Hemispheres, the captain of the ship of the Rocinante comes into this song, and he's been taken through the black hole to Mount Olympus, and is going to sort all of this out with the gods. Yeah, it sounds daft as I'm saying it all now, but yeah, I really, really love that. I think it's, on top of just the lyrics and the story and whatever, it is such a fantastic song. There are so many different riffs and different sections of it that are amongst the constant things that are coming into my head whenever the beat to YYZ isn't intruding in there, or the Cocoa Pops mantra. But I think that Hemispheres is the best thing that Rush did, and that is competing with some things that I absolutely love. But that is just side one of Hemispheres, because side two, I feel like I've suddenly kind of tripled in the length of talking about things now. I thought I had a lot less to say about this than I actually do. But Circumstances, a fantastic song. The more things change, the more they stay the same. The Trees that would have been one of the first Rush songs that I heard. I think a lot of my Rush introduction was through Rock Band, so it might have been a bit more than 10 years ago. The Trees, fantastic. Another nice allegory in the lyrics as well. Is it an allegory? Is it a metaphor? I don't know. I shouldn't have gone into this in that word. Trees, absolutely fantastic as well. And La Ville Strangiato, which is a 9 minute, the track list, the times are on the back of this, 9.5 minutes instrumental song, which is another thing that's a long time ago. I don't want to listen to an instrumental song, let alone one that takes 10 minutes. But like Hemispheres, this is full of little snippets of music that are constantly coming back to me. I'm constantly thinking about and want to listen again and hear it in all of its glory. It's another one that is just ridiculously complicated. It's apparently telling a story about a dream. I'm not saying that comes across. I never thought that from just listening to it before I was told it. But the way that song builds up from nothing, from so quiet and so slow to just where it ends up, so bombastic, so fast, so full of stuff. And yeah, Rush are always, maybe I should have put this higher now. Rush are always kind of playing at the best. It's as if they're all trying to outdo each other to be the best musician out there, but never getting in each other's way. All of that is just adding to the music itself, and I don't think they did it better than Hemispheres. Now I question my numbering of these things more than ever, but number 7 is A Night at the Opera by Queen, which is another one where I kind of think, oh yeah, you pick the Nirvana album that Smells Like Teen Spirit on, you pick the Queen album that's got Bohemian Rhapsody on there, but it's not just that. It's not particular songs, and it's not just the bands that have kind of done this. I've really thought about what I kind of feel about the album as a whole, and this is one that I bought this one. I think I've got a nicer copy since, but I bought this from a market stall for £1 when I first got a record player, whenever that was, years and years ago, when I was at college, and people would get rid of things on market stalls for £1. You'd never get that now. But yeah, not really listened to. I had Queen Greatest Hits on CD, I'm sure, and loved all of those songs. Loved Wayne's World enough to know Bohemian Rhapsody from a young age. But this was kind of my first introduction to... This was getting into the stage as well of listening to albums as a whole thing, and especially listening to them through there's all the boring debates about whether vinyl's better or not, but certainly these albums were made, for Rush as well, and I'm not sure particularly about David Bowie, but Rush and the Beatles and Queen and things were very concerned about the two halves of the album and how they fit together as well. That's a diversion. I'm not even talking about the album itself. So, A Night at the Opera is, I think, Queen's finest hour as well. I think of Queen as kind of split into two things, with the 70s being the kind of bombastic, flamboyant, camp, shiny costumes, ridiculously layered guitars, no synthesizers written on the albums, fantastically intricate things, beautiful harmonies. I think there's not many that can kind of compete with Queen for kind of, lavish, rich harmonies, but also going so over the top, not in a negative way either. It just adds to the music, but they definitely just went crazy. They talk in the documentaries that are made about it, about how you'd have an 8-track machine, and when you ran out of tracks, I think they had 24 tracks by this, I can't remember, but anyway, when you ran out of tracks, you had to bounce them down, so you would record all of those tracks down to 1 track, and then you'd have 7 tracks free, and then you could keep doing that. They did it so many times the tape went clear and nearly ran out, because these things are crazy, particularly the song Good Company, which is this, I can't think of the style of music now, it's this kind of brass band feel, but all of the instruments of this brass band are being played by a guitar with a particular amp and different sound settings and stuff, but the kind of intricacy and the time and the effort it would have taken to make that sound like it does is kind of staggering to think about, but it absolutely comes across in there. It's amazing that all of those things are guitars, and then it's got them doing sounds with their mouths and messing thimbles on desks to do percussion and stuff. All fantastic. But yeah, from the start of this, there's every track I love on this, which I'll keep saying for all of them. Even I'm in love with my car, which is probably one of the stupidest songs in the world. Probably the most ridiculous topic to me. I'm not really bothered. I don't know why he's so in love with his car, but I'm down with it. It's part of it on there. I've got to take a break from Freddie singing for a bit, but that's okay. We've got some with Brian May singing as well. But yeah, Death on Two Legs is an incredible kind of hate song, the venomous hate song to a manager that's messed with them. And yeah, all of these songs are so good at conveying that feeling of them, whether they want to be whether they want to be feeling just crazy or ridiculous or in love with their car or talking about time traveling or being in love with my best friend. That also comes across in the kind of venom that is being spat on Death on Two Legs, and it's got fantastic riffs in it, in the same way that Bohemian Rhapsody ended up having them riffs that were written on a piano and then had to kind of struggle to be played on a guitar. It really makes a kind of quirky original sound in it. And so yeah, you've got Death on Two Legs, Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon, and what's the other one? The Seaside Rendezvous, which kind of a similar pair in my mind, that they are the kind of the most ridiculous, the kind of old-fashioned, crazy camp feel of, bicycling on every Wednesday evening, Thursdays I go waltzing to the zoo, that kind of lyric that's, again, like, it just fits. It doesn't even sound strange. It feels like all of this just belongs perfectly in this weird little 12-inch world. But yeah, You're My Best Friend, up there with Bohemian Rhapsody for famous single. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful love song. 39, about that's a Brian May song about people that travel through. They're going to travel through space and they go through a wormhole, and when they come back, it's 100 years later. There's weird things that wouldn't think, and you wouldn't think, when you just list kind of the singles and the albums that these came off, when you actually dive into the albums, you end up with really weird things. The Prophet song, fantastic, venturing more into the prog side of things and layering and delaying vocals like they did on Now I'm Here from Sheer Heart Attack on the previous one, and Love of My Life, an absolutely beautiful, perfect love song as well. And then it finishes off with a weird layered version of God Save the Queen. But I think Night at the Opera, absolutely fantastic from Queen. Number 6, and this one in particular is one of the ones I thought, this isn't going to be universal and you would see on a lot of top 10 lists. This one is definitely more specific to me and maybe a few people out there. Who knows? Let me know. That would be surprising. This is I Will Cure You by Vic Reeves, who is a comedian, most often known in double acts with Bob Mortimer, Reeves and Mortimer. Done tons of stuff over the years, and yeah, I love all of their shows. But this is it a comedy album? Kind of. Some of it is. Some of it is that they're seriously trying to do serious, good music. But with covers, admittedly, a lot of the time. But yeah, this definitely fits into that area of I love this album now, and from time to time, like all of these, I do just listen to it all the way through, and a lot of the songs on it are just in rotation in my main playlist and will just come on. But this, more than any of them, I don't really remember many albums that I would have had as a child, and that certainly not that I would have listened to as well. I remember that I had some Beatles albums, I had, like the Red Album and the Blue Album and stuff, not particular actual studio albums that they made. I remember a few things like that. I remember having like the CD single to the Power Rangers movie and the Flintstones movie by the B-52s. But yeah, there's and the Supermarket Sweep dance remix theme tune. But there's not a lot that stands out album wise. This though, I always had. I don't want to get into wasting the whole video on talking about Vic and Bob. Maybe we'll do top 10 Vic and Bob things. Although I would be surprised if many people voted for that. I love their TV shows from when I was kind of a toddler, and this coming out is just, well, of course you would get that if you liked them. And it had, they were number one with Dizzy, a cover of a 60s Tommy Rowe song, but it's a fantastic version with the Wonder stuff. I think, aside from knowing that it's by a comedian or whatever, I think it stands out as a fantastic song. There's a cover of Black Knight on here by Deep Purple that has got Phil Oakey, the lead singer from the Human League, on it. And it basically sounds like the Human League's version of Black Knight. It's done absolutely phenomenally. And yeah, I can't say that I had particular fondness for Black Knight anyway. I would have heard this version way before, regardless. But yeah, definitely the definitive version for me. It's got Born Free, a cover of a 60s Matt Monro song, kind of smooth crooning number, but that things like that kind of remind me of like my nana couldn't stand any of this kind of comedy. It was too daft to laugh at, she always used to say, but loved his singing voice, absolutely loved it. Anything like Born Free. There's a cover of Abide With Me. Well, is it a cover if it's a hymn? There's a version of Abide With Me, the hymn, but set to a kind of 90s, what would it be, dance kind of music vibe. It's very, very strange, and even stranger when that is being played at a funeral. But she asked for it. But it's got all of those more normal songs on it, and then and then mixed throughout that are the more comedy ones. So it's a lot of songs that were from Vic Reeves' Big Night Out, the TV show at the time, usually elongated or changed around, nothing like they were really sang on the TV show. But yeah, I can't say that you would listen to this song, this album, out of context and that any of this mean anything or even be funny. But that's kind of a thing about Vic and Bob in general, that I can't really describe why they're funny or if you would like them at all. You just got to go with it and just hope that I Remember Punk Rock, Meals on Wheels, Summer of 75, absolutely fantastic songs. Some things that weren't anything to do with the album, Empty Kennel, kind of Old Shep-esque song about a dead dog, but with really weird things about sit in the kennel and sip hot water for hours. I can't really say much more about that. The Inner plays with like having released an album that he hid 3 pairs of Chelsea boots around the country and you could go and find them, and it recommends thinking of having a child, why not try these names? Thank you for buying this album. May I recommend other products like Black & Decker tools and Coleman's mustard? Weird stuff like that. This is one where part of the kind of snobby muso part of me is like, you're ranking a comedy album above Hemispheres, above A Night at the Opera, above Hunky Dory. But yeah, it's about what things mean to me, and there isn't much more. This is mine, by the way. It's not as quite as clear a picture because it's got sticker tears and it's a bit more worn, and the record is scratched to death. But this is my actual one from when I was like a toddler and stuff. So that'll always be kept around. But for the purposes of doing bizarre YouTube videos and actually listening to it, I bought a nicer one. Yeah, this is a stranger number, isn't it? Number 5 is Weezer by Weezer. The Blue Album, the first one that's Weezer by Weezer. I haven't got that one on record. I've got a CD of it, but that's just little, so I'll put a picture of it. Now, it seemed disingenuous to buy a copy of the vinyl for the purposes of this, as if I always had it, when I've never had it. Anyway, I first heard something from this. Well, technically it's from the deluxe version that's got B-sides and stuff on it, but I first heard something from this album. It was Suzanne, which is over the end credits of the film Mallrats, and for a long time I just had that song got from a totally legitimate place to download music, which everybody did back then. But yeah, just had that song and never really explored it further, and then was urged to much later that, oh yeah, these songs are actually really great. And after that, I listened to the thing the whole way through and was pretty much blown away straight away by, like, a lot of things that keep kind of cropping up in the things that I like are the kind of, you know, that, yeah, you only really know from the representation of what's put out in the music, but people that are more like-minded and being full of kind of nerdy, weird references, like the song In the Garage is full of talking about Dungeons and Dragons and X-Men and Kiss and stuff, not even the two members of Kiss you might think about straight away. And also, a lot of it is about kind of harmony and vocals, and yeah, I really do love harmony, and that is, well, who doesn't love harmony, but particularly beautiful ones. And it's strange now, like, I question the numbering of some of this top 10 list when I'm talking about Weezer's harmonies over Queen, but yeah, they are pitch perfect, and it is absolutely beautiful to listen to. And yeah, I think that every track, I have to have it on my phone here because I haven't got a record to sneak a look at the back of. But all the way through it, My Name is Jonas, No One Else, The World Has Turned and Left Me, Buddy Holly, Undone, The Sweater Song, Surf Wax America, Say It Ain't So, In the Garage, Holiday, and Only in Dreams. It's another one that's probably only about half an hour long. It's not a lengthy album. And yeah, it just whizzes by beautifully. And so it's got the strange kind of subject matter of some of the songs. It's got beautiful, not so much layered harmony, beautiful close harmony through all of it. And it's got this kind of 70s, very, I know that, the frontman is very much a Kiss fan from the lyrics, as you might imagine. But that kind of 70s Kiss kind of, that rock feel, but also the kind of urgent, crazy guitar solos, but not really like these huge extended instrumental things. Very, very tight, fitting into a more pop rock kind of format, that they are snappy, they are snappy songs and they zip by. And, I love that No One Else is, a ridiculous song about the singer who wants, when he's away, he wants his girlfriend to just stay in and not laugh at other people and stuff. And then the next track, and I believe I haven't worked this out myself, I think the singer has said this at some point, but then the next track, The World Has Turned and Left Me, a sad, we've broken up song. It's like they're like a pair of songs that the first song is him, being an idiot and selfish and stuff, and then the next song he's, being all, self-pitying and, oh, why isn't she around? Well, because of how you're acting in the song before. And then the all of the singles are just perfect. Buddy Holly especially, a fantastic reason that kind of transcend, like the singles that kind of transcend the band themselves, as well as, Say It Ain't So and The Sweater Song are absolutely fantastic as well. Say It Ain't So about, a relationship with a kind of, absent father, and Undone, the swear song about kind of not fitting in this kind of, everybody's friends and drinking and stuff, and not fitting in with that. And yeah, I really love the Sweater song for the, not just harmonies and stuff, but for the way that the chorus, as it progresses, kind of morphs and adds these bits on it, and adds extra lyrics while the other members are still singing the normal chorus. There's a new chorus sung over the top of it. Yeah, I absolutely love these strange things of original Weezer, because for better or for worse, and I still love some of the stuff that Weezer did after they changed, but that the original kind of chunk of Weezer, even by their second album after this, changed a fair bit. There's a definite difference in sound and tone and subject matter from this to Pinkerton, and I do like this kind of, even in the sad songs, they do sound kind of upbeat and cheery and poppy, and beach, especially Holiday, very much kind of Beach Boys kind of thing of just we're going on a holiday kind of subject matter of a song, but then it's still got that kind of more modern feel to it and crazy solos, but still with close harmonies and stuff. I'm just saying the same thing over and over and over and over again. Yeah, I love the Blue album. It's really, really fantastic. And I love Pinkerton as well. But yeah, the Blue album has to win out. Anyway, back to showing off records. You can get these NHMV or something now. They make most of them new. I don't know if they're repressing I Will Cure You quite the numbers that they do in Smith's albums. But anyway, number 4? Yes, number 4. The Queen is Dead by The Smiths. I absolutely love The Smiths, and we will absolutely leave the discussion of certain members and viewpoints and things and just talk about the way things were in the good old 80s. The Queen is Dead. And it's kind of close running for... I'm not so much... I'd like the Smiths' first album, but it's definitely a different sound that I'm not as keen on. I really like a lot of the songs on it, and kind of different versions, like Peel Sessions and things that were on other albums, like Hatful of Hollow, which is a bit of a kind of, radio sessions and B-sides and non-album singles compilation album, but that kind of stands up to be one of the best Smiths albums, even though it's just a compilation. And yeah, it's close run between this and Meat is Murder and Strange Ways Here We Come for different reasons, but I think as a whole thing, it has to be The Queen is Dead. And yeah, I don't think there's a lot of these things. When I was coming up with the list and thinking how kind of generic some of it might end up seeming, that what original am I going to say about Queen or the Smiths that hasn't been said a trillion times anywhere? I don't think I'll just keep throwing up I Will Cure You everywhere. I don't think that's been analysed quite so much by people, but it's just absolutely beautiful, picturesque, intricate, layered music from Johnny Martin, not to discount Andy Rourke and Mike Joyce on the drums and bass, and yes, beautiful lyrics and vocals from Morrissey. And for some reason, even I'm not sure if it always stayed that way, but the music was separate, and then the lyrics just were recorded separately on top, and they didn't even know what the lyrics were going to end up being. And so there's this weird disjointed thing to them. The music often sounds happy, but it's got a kind of undercurrent to it, and then the lyrics are often, as they're kind of they're stereotyped as being very miserable, the Smiths, and they do cover quite miserable topics. But as many people have said as well, I've always I've listened to the Smiths since I was a teenager, and they've always seemed very funny to me. A lot of the lyrics seemed very tongue-in-cheek, or that they were outwardly making jokes, or even having a go at themselves. Like Never Had No One Ever on this is almost self-parody of how miserable the Smiths songs are seen to be. But the Queen is Dead, an attack on the monarchy, which I'm not really keen on. But and also about just loneliness in general. Frankly, Mr. Shankly, you're having a go at a boss as you are quitting a job. I Know It's Over is, I think maybe just for a certain type of person, but for a good long time, that song was a big kick in the guts lyrically, and I think it's very, very powerful. Cemetery Gates, a more kind of tongue-in-cheek song, but the kind of another song about not really belonging, and that is a dreaded sunny day, so I'll meet you at the cemetery gates and gather and read poetry and compare these poets and stuff. Big singles like Big Mouth Strikes Again, just absolutely fantastic. And again, it comes to this strange marriage, this weird alchemy that happens when the music and the lyrics meet. The Boy with the Thorn in His Side, absolutely beautiful song. I just keep repeating this same thing over and over again, but lines like when you want to live, how'd you start, where'd you go, who do you need to know, absolutely amazing. That is pretty much life, isn't it? Who do you need to know? Vicar in a Tutu, I know that I've heard before of people discussing Smith's songs, and that maybe The Queen is Dead is sillier songs, frankly, Mr. Shankly and Vicar in a Tutu and stuff, but I think Vicar in a Tutu is amazing, and that he's that's it doesn't matter, it's maybe an unusual thing, but that's the least of his worries. And There Is a Light That Never Goes Out, probably, I don't know, maybe This Charming Man or something, or How Soon Is Now, maybe more recognisable, but I think There Is a Light That Never Goes Out is pretty up there, isn't it? And deservedly so. Like so many of these things, it's I do find myself kind of, I've never really thought like, overrated songs. So sometimes like it got into a point of with How Soon Is Now or something, thinking, I've kind of heard it so many times I could do without it for a bit. But I kind of back to that, like it's a phenomenal song. And similarly for There Is a Light That Never Goes Out, all things kind of reach a point where you have listened to them so many times that they kind of lose that sheen, and they just become this known thing that you kind of think, I'll listen to some of the other things more than that. But any kind of like stopping and thinking when There Is a Light That Never Goes Out comes on is just, it's such a perfect song, and kind of encapsulates the Smiths of that. While this is a song whose message is about it's kind of about not belonging and wanting to get out and stuff, but also about a kind of declaration of love is delivered in the manner of, if a double-decker bus crashes into us, to die by your side is such a heavenly way to die. Like it's this kind of twisted, kind of sarcastic way of looking at it. I think it's beautiful. And then Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others. That's I don't think I was about to say, like, I don't think you could fail to see like the kind of silliness of that. But it's been on when people have seriously just said that this, it's as if like if you don't, and I'm certainly culpable of this as well, for things that I don't like, it's easy to see them from kind of a different perspective and imagine that they were trying to make some kind of big profound statement with something like Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others, rather than it just being a kind of, not really just a tossed aside thing, but based on a kind of a weird premise for a song, and a kind of strange premise that, in your mid-20s suddenly, like, it took you till your mid-20s to realise that girls are a different size. But anyway, I'm just kind of describing songs one by one for this one. But I think every one of those, like if one's ever been skipped, it would be Never Had No One Ever. But that's a long time ago that was happening. I think that everything is put together so beautifully, and the kind of, I've kind of gone on and on about lyrics and subjects and stuff, but I think this is where Johnny Marr from the beginning with This Charming Man and William It Was Really Nothing and Hand in Glove and stuff was already had his style kind of down. This weird kind of finger picking and country influences, but glam rock's in there, and all sorts of music is crammed together, but just comes out just Johnny Marr, and you don't really think of anything else beyond that. And I think that a lot of things get added on top of that, to the point where it's got like the synthesizers, the kind of the synth orchestration of There Is a Light That Never Goes Out is absolutely phenomenal and adds to the song beautifully. And it goes even further into something like Last Night I Dreamt That Somebody Loved Me from Strange Ways. But I think my heart always belongs to The Queen Is Dead. Number 3 is Kimono My House by Sparks. And now I'm not saying that you will necessarily be in love with Sparks, but it's another one where if you do like Sparks, this is the one that everybody says is the favourite one. The one where I don't feel like I'm being particularly original, but why should I be? But there are, if you want me to prove that I'm some kind of proper Sparks fan, I love Indiscreet and Propaganda, also part of the same kind of era. Hello Young Lovers and Exotic Creatures of the Deep. Hippopotamus is fantastic. Can't wait for it. They've got a new album about to come out, or maybe it's just come out and I've missed it. I can't wait. But yes, Sparks, another kind of bizarre thing. Sparks are mainly two brothers. It's a band, but throughout its entire 50-year career, it's two brothers, Ron and Russell Mael. And you'll see Prism Arena that I'm propping these records up on. Here they are. Yes, very unique look to them and a completely unique sound to Sparks. This is the album with This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us, the kind of probably still their most famous single out of anything that they've ever done. And I think that it would have been the first one that I listened to and would have been the kind of main discovery past just that single as a kind of separate thing. That's the only thing that would kind of come across compilations and things I would have seen as a teenager. But actually delving into this album, I think it's a fantastic rock album. The bands with Sparks have always been fantastic, but it fits in with that kind of that kind of early 70s rock. It is so perfect. The riffs in things like This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us, even though it's a primarily kind of keyboard driven track, a lot of the tracks are have that as the kind of heart of them. The instrumentation is just fantastic on them, and saying things like the instrumentation seems like I'm some kind of music YouTuber, and I don't know what half this stuff means. But yeah, a lot of I love the sound of the band, and in particular the sound of the vocals. Russell Mael is a phenomenal singer, and based on the songs that were written for him, that were always just written as very high to sing, very, very high-pitched voice, very powerful voice, in a very different way to Geddy Lee of Rush. But also with often singing his own harmonies, and especially as Sparks have progressed, they have gone into some very kind of operatic avenues with, as far as I know, all the vocals kind of harmonised by Russell harmonising with himself. But as well as the kind of the actual sound and the instrumentation of the songs, they are not always, but mostly written by Ron Mael, the keyboardist, the pencil mustache wearing one. And I think that Sparks, even now, even after all this time and all the different kind of musical styles that they have gone into, Sparks have always been very much, their songs have always been very funny as well, and kind of sarcastic. And that, This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us is about, kind of being at odds with kind of fear of approaching someone romantically, and comparing these kind of benign, everyday kind of problems that would happen to everyone, really, but comparing them, being ridiculously hyperbolic, and comparing the rain to bullets falling in a war zone and things like that. But very knowing it's all done kind of comically. Not that I would ever say that they are comedy songs, but they are incredibly funny for what they are. How can you not just fall in love with the title of a song like Falling in Love with Myself Again? Amateur Hour, all about the kind of adolescent stirrings of love and lust more than anything, and kind of how daft that is looked compared against where it's a lot like playing the violin, you can't start off and be Yehudi Menuhin, this weird kind of juxtaposition of things. And that's what a lot of the kind of humour in these things comes from. The Talent is an Asset, a song about the boy genius of Albert Einstein, and how his family has to protect him from the world so he can grow up to be this amazing genius. Here in Heaven, a song about Romeo and Juliet, and that I can't remember which way's which. I don't know Romeo and Juliet well enough. I know most of it from this song probably, but one being waiting in heaven, waiting for the other one to take the poison and have you changed your mind, and that kind of thing. And Hastam and Yana Monsieur, about a hapless kind of narrator desperately trying to cobble together a language to communicate with someone that doesn't speak the language and thinks that hasta mañana Mashur is just two words and that would be from the same language, and features like I really like the line. You mentioned Kant, and I was shocked that none of the girls I know have such foul tongues. Like that kind of daft pun, misunderstanding, mispronunciation of a word. The philosopher. I didn't just swear on this channel, don't worry. And Equator, which I'm missing out some of the songs, but Equator in particular is another one that is arranged to meet somebody at the equator at a particular time and day and is wondering why they haven't turned up. But that song in particular is more the kind of strange edge of Sparks, this kind of just repetition of the word equator, and these layers of vocals that eventually, the rest of the instrumentation strips away towards the end of the song, and it just ends up with multi-layered vocals calling and responding to each other, basically just saying equator over and over again. But I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's another one where it's strange that some albums it just comes really, really easily out, and then other ones, even though I absolutely love this album, it doesn't come as easily for some reason. Anyway, that shouldn't be in this. Number 2, Elephant by the White Stripes, and I think definitely towards the top of the list. Love for just bands in general influences it a bit more, but I've tried to kind of look at it from outside, and yes, as an album, I would put a restriction that I didn't really mention early on is that I wanted to make it so that it was just one album per artist, so the top wouldn't just be jammed with, well, you'll see who it is if you don't know already. So it wouldn't just be jammed with 10 of that particular band's albums, and that the top positions wouldn't just be taken by Elephant and then White Blood Cells and then Dishtile and Get Behind Me Satan and why just prove that I can name White Stripes albums. Get Behind Me Satan wouldn't be in that position either. Although I love Get Behind Me Satan, don't think that I'm against it. A lot of people were against it. Anyway, Elephant, another one where it's like, it's the one that's got Seven Nation Army on it, but which it has, and yes, Seven Nation Army is deserving of its hit status, kind of at the time and beyond. But then it's one of those strange things where it becomes like an anthem. It exists outside the band that ever did it. There will be people, humming that riff at football matches and stuff that wouldn't know or care who sang that song or what the rest of it is, which is bizarre, but in a good way. This is the Record Store Day reissue. If you want to be really boring and vinyl about it, this is the more recent Record Store Day reissue of it. This is the original, but I didn't think that this would show up on camera quite as well. The paper's dark because apparently it's elephant dung that printed it on. Anyway, the White Stripes. Yes, one of my favourite bands. And I think there is a definite progression and improvement through all of their albums. This is the 4th album. So they've had, the White Stripes where it was really raw and distorted, and the songs were much shorter and maybe less specific about something, more kind of up in the air. And throughout the other albums, it starts to get refined bit by bit. And I think it's silly putting on an accent and then pronouncing something wrong. But I was told years and years and years ago it's pronounced Dishtile. Is the second album, and then you start to get into more kind of slide guitar, more refinements, learn more instruments, and then they're covering different things. It's going back to kind of really early blues, which they did on the first album as well. I'm not drawing proper distinctions, but then it gets to White Blood Cells, and then suddenly that is when the kind of fame and recognition kicks in, that it's got songs on it like Hotel Yorba and Fell in Love with a Girl and Dead Leaves and the Dirty Ground, the 3 big singles that kind of hit it off for them. Those first 2 albums came out when they were just tiny in Detroit and stuff. And so Elephant has got Seven Nation Army, the hardest button to button, I just don't know what to do with myself. Is that all of the main singles on it? I believe it is. But So it's the one where they kind of reached the pinnacle of their fame, and then they did more after that. They had popular singles after that, but this is probably where it all kind of culminates. And I wouldn't say they drop off after that. They kind of, it feels like they did Elephant and thought, oh, we'll do something else now. Let's make the next album all piano, and that's what Get Behind Me, Satan largely is. But I think that this is kind of the perfection of their sound. It's still got all of that, garage rock, kind of do-it-yourself feel to it, and it was just recorded. There are two people in this band. A lot of the songs have such stripped-down elements that often it is just drums and guitar and vocals, and it does go into piano or keyboards and stuff. But often it's kind of a trade-off that when the piano starts, the guitar stops for a bit, and then to help how it would be performed live. And I think that song after song, it's full of rockers like Seven Nation Army and Black Math and There's No Home for You Here. I think that especially like the solos in things like Black Math and There's No Home for You Here are just unbeatable. And I just don't know what to do with myself. Fantastic song and an awesome different cover of it. In the Cold Cold Night is the first time that Meg is singing a song, and I think it is a beautiful song. It's kind of, it was written for her, but it feels that way. It feels tailored perfectly to her, with very kind of sparse guitar underneath her vocals. I Want to Be the Boy to Warm Your Mother's Heart. Like there's something kind of off kilter. There's something just not quite right about that these songs kind of seem like they would be poppier things, but there is something kind of off kilter about the White Stripes, about the way that they kind of process things. It's about the kind of simplicity of it as well, that the songs are often about more simple things, however kind of strangely abstracted they end up being. A complaint about the White Stripes, it would be that the drumming is so simple. I'm not sure if people still do that. I'm hanging on to things that people used to say, well, back when the White Stripes were popular. I'm not sure that people talk about them as much as they did anymore. But the drums are simple, but similarly to the next band, you wouldn't be able to do it with a different drummer. It would be completely different music. You wouldn't be able to write it. Half of the songs wouldn't exist, and the rest would be so bizarrely different. Maybe they would be better, but they wouldn't be this. And this is what I love. It's got Ball and Biscuit, ridiculously long instrumental. And it's got vocals, but most of it is just, it's a guitar solo song more than anything, like a 7-minute epic song that all builds and builds and builds beautifully. I do apologise, I've worn the battery out of the camera going on about all of this stuff. Where was I? Everything still intrigues me about the White Stripes all these years later. I love their music. I love this weird fascinations and weird little quirks of, saying they're brother and sister when they're not, and being obsessed with the number 3, and a band that has a colour scheme and sticks to that colour scheme throughout their entire career. It's always red, white and black and nothing else. Loads of it revolves around that obsession with the number 3. And I think that it pretty much is rock to me. It's a bit different because this is, although I wasn't on board right at the start or anything like that, or even at the start of them getting famous, the White Stripes, more than most bands, feel like my band, the band that I was around to see at least the last few albums of, and then pine for their return one day. But hey, most of the time it's better that things don't come back and that you just remember how perfect things were when they were around. I would recommend listening to any of the White Stripes albums, and I kind of kept that restriction to mentioning Raconteurs albums, which is the Raconteurs are a super group of Jack White and Brendan Benson and Patrick Keeler and Little Jack Lawrence of the Greenhorns. absolutely fantastic. The first album, quite short, quite poppy. Second album, just perfect. Very disparate styles on that, but yes, that is kind of the culmination of theirs. And they came back and did an album last year as well. And The Dead Weather, Jack White's other supergroup, their first two albums as well, Whorehound and Sea of Cowards. Both quite different as well, but utterly fantastic. And then Jack White's solo stuff. Nothing has ever... I was kind of there at the time for those Raconteurs and The Dead Weather and seeing these, an album's coming out every year and it's from a different band. But yeah, I've never kind of fallen in love with the solo stuff quite as much as I did all of this stuff, but maybe that's just time ticking along and people doing different things. But yeah, there's some standout stuff in the solo stuff as well. But this has just kind of turned into a generic White Stripes review, which I didn't want it to be about. I wanted to talk about why I like Elephant so much, because it's the best one. And number one. Other things kind of jockeyed for positions, and I even now, recording it a few days after I finalised the order for about the millionth time, I question it again now and would rearrange things. But yes, the Beatles are my favourite band and probably have always been. And Abbey Road is definitely my favourite album that they ever did. Although, yeah, it gets pretty close at the top, as it does for like when you're discussing like 10 favourite albums. It's pretty close, isn't it? It's pretty much a guarantee of excellence, any of these. Anyway, the Beatles. Everyone agrees that they're the best, and no one would ever dare say they're overrated. And we can all just agree on that and go home, can't we? Maybe not. So, why Abbey Road out of all of them then? I'm not going to go into why just the Beatles in general. You should know that. If you think the Beatles are overrated, you should just go listen to some more of them. There's different styles. You might like one. I'm not saying that you will and that everybody should, but everybody absolutely should. So, Abbey Road, I kind of always think of this as the kind of, in a similar way to the White Stripes, that this is kind of a progression through it, and the Beatles absolutely, anyone known the Beatles story of progressing from the kind of family-friendly mophead beat group to experimenting, getting psychedelic, stopping touring, doing these stranger things, falling out, and then it's all over. But yeah, so Abbey Road comes right at the end of this. Even though Let It Be is the last one that came out, this is the last one they recorded. So anything about arguments and falling out and blah 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 doesn't matter. They came together throughout all of that. After all of that, deciding shall we come back in and do another album? I don't think it was kind of known that this would be the last one, but knowing that we're going to try and do it like we used to do it. Let's stop experimenting with all of this stuff. Let's just try and do an album together. And so just going from the singles that are on an album, this has got, or not even with the Beatles, it kind of goes past singles, doesn't it? And just ridiculously famous songs, as so many of them are. But so this has got on it. And yes, I will make sure that they're on this one, more that I don't miss any off. But it's got what I would consider the kind of the Blue Album songs, the ones that I would have been listening to while I went to sleep when I was like 7 or something. Things like Come Together, Something, Octopus's Garden, Here Comes the Sun, and then Oh Darling, Maxwell Silverhammer. I think Maxwell Silverhammer was on the Blue. I don't think it was on the Blue Album because I probably had Abbey Road and listened to it on that. Always like that. So it's got such. That's pretty much side one. Come Together, Something, Maxwell Silverhammer, Oh Darling, Octopus's Garden, and I Want You, She's So Heavy. And then the B-side is Here Comes the Sun, and a massive medley of songs that often flow into each other. And I'll get onto that. But just from those singles, all of them are so different and so perfect at kind of not even nailing a particular feel. It's just like, yeah, that's Come Together. Who hasn't heard that and appreciates the kind of understated, the kind of stripped back nature of it, and how kind of ubiquitous a lot of these songs are. Like it'd be like the riff of Whole Lotta Love or something, but that bass riff is the Stairway to Heaven of bass, I reckon. Something just Frank Sinatra's favorite Lennon and McCartney song. Just an absolutely beautiful love song from from someone that isn't Lennon and McCartney, from George Harrison, who had kind of learned to write songs throughout the Beatles and, is writing as good or better songs than the masters can. Maxwell Silverhammer, a bizarre song about a murderer, but that couldn't be delivered in a much more upbeat, old-fashioned style. That even appealed to me as a child, how weird that was, and how funny it was, and how catchy it is. Oh Darling, that kind of, that's some more shouty McCartney, but an absolutely fantastic performance, and another really driving song that so many of these albums, and Abbey Road more than any of them, it's just kind of, you're just let go on a journey for 30 or 40 minutes. It just zips you to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and it's always something not surprising anymore at the time. It's always a new discovery, and at this point they're all comfortable jumpers or something. But Octopus's Garden, another one loved from being a kid, kid's song. But even now, I wouldn't hesitate to have it. It's on my playlist. It comes on, I sing along to it, no problem. It's absolutely fantastic. As a rocker as well, that like a more old-fashioned one than the style of the Beatles at the time. Ringo constantly rewriting these kind of blues standards. It works perfectly in Octopus's Garden, and the George's guitar that punctuates the whole thing. That's especially towards the end. It just adds to it in a beautiful way, and I think it kind of. It's I'm blinded often by just loving the Beatles so much, but kind of forget that it's just a daft kid's song about living in an octopus's garden. But I think it's absolutely fantastic. I Want You, She's So Heavy is one that I didn't listen to until I got the record or had an actual record player and listened to it properly side to side, because I'm bad for, especially with CDs and now with phones, saying that like it's a new technology, like it hasn't been everyone's default for 15 years. But I'm bad for liking a song or two, putting them on over and over and over and over again, and then sometimes it'll slip to the next track, and I'll discover things bit by bit. But when it comes to actually listening to albums all the way through, that's when kind of the importance of the record comes into play with this, because on a CD it would just flow into the next track. So I Want You, She's So Heavy is a beautiful rock song, a kind of a heavier sound to it, and it descends in the more than the second half of the song into this repeating riff just over and over and over again, and it's this kind of hypnotic flowing thing, and it builds up, and there's kind of this wind sound in the back and feedback, and it all builds up and builds up really slowly over like 3 minutes or more, and just keeps going and going and going, and then when you least expect it, it stops. And I think the joke being that people would go and check if their record player was broken or something, that the song just suddenly stopped. But that's the end of the side as well, so nothing happens until you flip it over, and then all of a sudden, after being hypnotized by that song, suddenly you have the beauty and the wonder that is in Here Comes the Sun. Another one from George Harrison. That's I realise that I'm just retreading things that people just say about this anyway. Well, another one, like two on the same album, from just building up, and had written beautiful songs before this as well, and quirky songs, things like Piggies and Savoy Truffle, and While My Guitar Gently Weeps, which is even better on the Love album, I think, than the normal version. But Here Comes the Sun, absolutely beautiful, and then it leads into possibly my favourite Beatles thing, the medley of Abbey Road, which is basically, when you come down to it, it's just, we've got a load of songs, and maybe this is going to be the last album, so do you want to just chuck all of these songs we can't think of a way to finish them, do you want to just chuck them all together and see how it goes? I think that's basically how it came to be. And so, because I'm forgetting Because as well, that's technically not part of the medley, but it leads into it beautifully. Another kind of hypnotic repeating not a riff, hypnotic keyboard, the synthesizer part that's, I think it's some classical music backwards, if I remember that right. But another thing, and kind of exemplifies more than anything, especially the Love version, and it's on Anthology as well, where it strips out all the instrumentation, just has the vocals. That is kind of more an example of anything of how amazing the Beatles were at harmony, and with each other as well. Like, all of these bands have their particular ways of doing it, but it's the fit of the voices just as much as their writing and singing abilities. It's those voices in Queen, they fit so perfectly together, and the Beatles as well. It's all layered harmonies. I think they layer it about 4 times, so there's like 12 voices all singing in harmony constantly throughout, because it's absolutely beautiful. And then the medley itself starts with You Never Give Me Your Money, and I've got to remember it all now. Sun King, I'm going to just look because I'm going to forget one. Me, Mr. Mustard, Polythene Pam, She Came In Through the Bathroom Window, Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight to the End. I think if I just individually talk about these things, this video is going to end up so ridiculously long. But it's that's the thing as well. I've so many different kind of styles and different levels of kind of progression through the song. Obviously, some songs were more written than others. Some songs are just kind of little phrases and they move on to the next thing. They're all things where I kind of think, I would love this to be a full song, and at the same time think, I'm so glad that it isn't, and that it's part of this, because part of its kind of structure and its fit within this medley elevates the songs to so much more than they would be. They probably would just be some tracks on the Anthology albums where things that didn't quite make the final cut just end up. They might just sound like some of the unreleased songs that are on that, but I think that it's to do with their kind of flow into each other, the return of these other things, and that's part of having George Martin as a producer, as well as their experience all throughout their career at this point. This is 69, so they've had since 62 of just recording, and then years of constant playing in Germany and Liverpool before that. So it's the culmination of all that experience and George Martin's experience with classical music, and their love for it, particularly Paul McCartney's kind of keenness on that. Having these kind of motifs, I can't really speak it, I don't really know about the musical theory and stuff, but having these parts of music that return, that parts of You Never Give Me Your Money, the very first song, come back through Carry That Weight towards the end, and a riff that was just seen towards the end of You Never Give Me Your Money, it just suddenly appears at the end of that song and leads straight into the next one. It's so seamless, considering that some of the songs just kind of abruptly go into the next song, and the order was changed along the recording of it, so it's not like it was all this meticulously constructed thing, like so many things from all of these albums and just music in general, and life in general. So many kind of happy accidents contribute to making this beautiful thing. But the deluxe edition came out that's got the original medley where Her Majesty is put back in the middle where it originally was, and it's amazing as a kind of as an extra thing to listen to that you've never quite heard properly before. But at the same time, I'm so glad that it was done that way. I love these songs, especially like the kind of the rawness of Mean Mr. Mustard, and with its kind of ridiculously saturated bass that's going throughout it, and Polythene Pam as well, similarly with that kind of guitar kind of driving up the whole neck to play the chords, and it's kind of interrupting the vocals, and Golden Slumbers as well is beautiful, and that's kind of taken off another life. It's in I can't remember which film. It's in like an animated film, and it's kind of taken off a life of its own, kind of beyond the Beatles, I would imagine, by now as well. But then Her Majesty, just like a 30-second little thing, and it's just a daft song about fancying the Queen. That's like, they decided, they didn't want that in the medley anymore, so someone under strict instructions, never delete anything from the Beatles, just put it on the end of the album, just so we don't lose it. And then that ends up being, a hidden track, an early example of a hidden track that the album finishes with the end. And then after about 20 seconds of nothing, you think it's over. Suddenly Her Majesty kicks in and because it was cut out of the medley, it's got like a really loud noise to kick it into as well. It's like a beautifully accidental thing, but I think... it's fantastic to listen to. And the end itself, for whatever they knew at the time about the status of them as a band, for this to be the last album that they ever made, and for it to be, as far as I'm concerned, the best one that they ever made. And the last song on their last album is called The End, and it is such a fantastic thing. It's just it starts out just kind of a pure rock song. Oh yeah, all right. Are you going to be in my dreams tonight? And then you get the only ever Ringo solo, and then it transitions into 3 guitar solos all after each other. They keep taking turns doing guitar solos of John, Paul, and George. Everybody gets kind of a chance to shine in this kind of last moment, and it all builds up and builds up, and the solos build up, and then it all cuts off, strips down back to piano, and the very end of the end, the last ever Beatles song is and in the end the love you take is equal to the love you make, which is pretty much the kind of message of pretty much what the Beatles were. That kind of sums up a lot of it, and kind of an aspiration just for life in general. And so it ends on such a perfect note, and then after you kind of finishing what a beautiful ending that was to the album, suddenly Her Majesty kicks in and kind of punctures that by talking about how much he would like to get the Queen drunk, but in a positive way that also adds to it as well, that is kind of that it does add however intentional, it adds a daft kind of comedic thing to the end of it. And yeah, I love it. I think I'm just going to go listen to Abbey Road again for a bit after this. So yeah, that is my 10 favourite albums apparently of all time. I'd probably rejig them a little bit. Even now, halfway through, I thought, oh, these should be reversed, and I've changed my mind about half of that now. So that's never going to stay in flux. I really enjoyed this. I talk about board games pretty much all of the time on this channel. And yeah, I do. While I don't think that I'm particularly introducing you to something new, maybe you've dismissed some of these for some reason, and maybe give you a little reason to investigate them. Maybe there's going to be a surge in Spotify listens to Vic Reeves music, but I would be very, very surprised if you do go and listen to that. Is it on Spotify even? It must be. If you do go listen to that and you enjoy it, let me know. Whether you enjoy it or not, let me know what you thought of it, because that's the only one that I think, because that's very specifically me. Yeah, this was fun. Maybe we'll do something equally non-board game one day when when other topics dry up and this seems like the most appealing thing on the list. Or maybe people really did want to see the music topic covered. Maybe we'll do top 10 bands, although some of it, guess which the top 10 are, or TV shows or something one day. Who knows? You vote on Patreon. There's a top 10 vote where you can get involved in that, but you can suggest things. Anyway, we're just having a chat now at the end, aren't we? I hope you enjoyed this and that it kind of edited into something usable, because there was a lot of tangents and droning on, even more than if you ever think watching this, oh, he went on a bit in that bit, imagine what I cut out. So right, I'm gonna go and put all of this together now. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you for Back to Board Games another time. Bye everyone. I shouldn't have taken these out of their sleeves. I didn't want them to be all glaring on the camera with the PVC sleeves. You shouldn't have a double in a single PVC though. It's not quite big enough. There we go. Keep things all lovely.